The stark gender gap that's developing in American politics, especially among younger people, which is one of the things that fascinates me here. So there are new numbers on exactly how this is evolving. So tell us what we should be looking at.
Well, this is a fascinating new poll from the Wall Street Journal, and it basically shows that men and women under 30 are becoming incredibly polarized. So male voters under 30, they used to be a pillar of the Democratic Party all the way back to Reagan. But this poll shows that there's been a huge 29-point swing, 29 points in just the last 4 years towards Trump.
Do you remember what James Carville said about a month ago? This was, at the time, a criticism of the Biden campaign. And he said it was starting to feel, he was talking about black men in particular. He lives in New Orleans. He said it was starting to feel as though the Democratic Party was feminized, and sort of a lot of, I guess, feminists would take major issue with this critique because it kind of accepts the premise that women are scolds. But that's basically what James Carville was saying, that the Democratic Party feels like something that is lecturing and scolding men, that he actually used the example of telling men to wear prophylactics and saying they can't watch football. There was that Meryl Streep comment at one of the Trump-era award shows where she said, you know, if we get rid of the arts, all we'll be left with is MMA. And it's just, you can see where the perception among working class men would start to be that Democrats are just not for them. And now that they have a woman at the top of the ticket, I mean, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She won the popular vote in 2016. She didn't win the Electoral College, but a majority of people who voted in 2016 voted for the first female president. So I don't think that America is like just opposed to a female president, but I do understand where men in particular would be picking up on something that feels, I guess, unappealing to them from Democrats.
James Carville, yes, he is not one to mince his words. I'm not sure I'd use the same language as him, but I think there is a kernel in truth in what he's saying. Young women remain firmly Democrats, but they're much more likely to call themselves liberal than they were 2 decades ago. So the party politics might not have changed a huge amount, but the ideology certainly has. Now, the Wall Street Journal points out a few interesting questions that really highlights this chasm between the two genders. And I just want to go through a couple of those with you now. So, the first one, we see a 35-point difference on urgent action for climate change. Women are much more enthused about the idea that we should be acting on climate change, unlike men who still support the idea, but way further down in that chart. Another one, same point difference, 35 points. We're seeing women in much more favor of letting kids pick out their gender identity. Look at men all the way down there, minus 33 percentage points. So that's a huge gap as well. Now, just so you don't think I'm being exclusively female focused, look at this one.
I would never accuse you of that, Jimmy.
So men, build the wall. They are in the positive territory, just about, but women all the way down, minus 47 percentage points. They are very much not in favor of building the wall.
So these things also, I mean, with immigration aside, they're not just political topics that might make it tough on a first date or matching on Hinge or at the dinner table. They're how people live their lives. So it's not just a matter of, you know, on the one hand, you're going to start seeing parties reflecting this gender polarization that, you know, Republicans, what they're saying is probably going to start sounding more and more male. Democrats, what they're saying is going to start appealing to more and more women if that's the base that you have to turn out. So that already is going to reflect this division. And that's unhealthy enough, honestly. But where that's going to get worse is in, for example, how to raise children based on sex and gender, how you live your life based on, you know, whether you think climate change is a serious issue. We're not aware of how those are going to bubble to the surface of people's everyday lives yet, because this is a really young cohort, and these are fairly new divisions that are deepening as we speak right here. I would expect in the next couple of years, if these trends continue in a similar direction, these relationships between men and women, these sort of sex-based disagreements or lifestyle divergences are going to get worse. And that means we are going to be less healthy as a society as a consequence. There's basically no other way to see that. Head over to undercurrents.tv for a lot more.